Yo, what's going on, people, and welcome back to the channel as always. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a sexy vintage R&B sample, sort of having my sort of style, and showing you how to use like complex chords. And before we get into this, if you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe down below, leave a comment, and let's get straight into it. So the first thing when making these like sexy R&B chords is you have like dominant, diminished chords which tend to be out of the scale. So as you can see here, this is in the C major scale, so it's all the white keys. So the first chord here is the C major 7, and for the second chord you got a B dominant 7, and all really is just making these two notes flat, and it just gives that nice vintage R&B and just sort of gives like tension and rise to the chord. And then the third chord here is just a B minor 7th, and then this goes into an A minor 7th, and using these sort of chords just set the mood perfect for an R&B sample like this. So to all together, this is how it sounds. So that first sound was the wah sync from Lizard Lounge, and all I did was add this like shaper box so it pulses in, and then I use this filter to just filter in back in from so low pass to high pass. Then after that I use this fake Leslie, just give it a little bit like nice tape saturation, and then I use like a heavy reverb because I wanted to sort of turn it into a nice like pad atmospheric vibe. So once I tracked that out, I just put a pan man on so it just pulses left to right, and as you can see by the waveforms here, the pulsing of the sidechain, it's not coming in till like halfway through the bar, and that's how I want it to just feed and have like a nice element to just give more room to the other sounds. Next thing I added was this Butterfly synth keys from Loophole, and I used the same chords, and it just sounds like this. So setting the mood and the tone of the whole sample, and where the other one is pulsing in, these are playing and having a short release, so it just gives the other sound breathing space and just fits in perfect. So when it comes with this, I just do the casual EQ. I did quite a heavy delay with this dual. Then I just use this sketch cassette to give a little bit of hiss and noise and saturation. Next thing I added was this like short underwater lead that sounds like this. Gives a nice cool texture, and I sort of used it just here, as you can see, just a casual sound just to be in the background. And what I've done with that, heavy reverb, lots of decay, high mix, just to drown it out, have it as like just a texture, as I said, in the background. And then I've used this twisted echoes delay, just gives it a cool effect, but I've brought the mix quite a lot down to like 30%. This is how it sounds. So that's subtle and just gives a cool texture. After that, I just use addicted drums to just give it a nice cool rhythm so I can get a bass idea of how I want the sample to go. And sort of just play with the velocities of each sound just so it could be natural drums. So what I like to do with my drums first is run them through a preamp just to give like a nice tone towards the whole sample. This dense room reverb, low mix, low depth, just so I can get a proper feeling for like an actual drum sound in an obviously in an actual room. Then I just use this delay just to give a cool like effect and just make it repeat and echo. So this is what it sounds after. After that, I found this harsh lead that I just used as like a texture and just to give it a different sort of vibe. So it's one note and just sounds simple at the start. And what I like about that, it has a very long release and just builds tension into like the second chord. And I use this cassette chorus just to give that nice feeling towards it. So once I had that, I wanted to give it a nice guitar and just to give that nice old school feeling. So I had this jazz archtop guitar that I always use, the double boiler preset. And I've used the wah effect that I always like to use. And as you can see with this melody, it just plays off like the riffs and makes a cool counter melody to the normal sample and the normal chords. As you can see here at the top, I've used this B, and it's just cool. It gives it like a nice downfalling effect on the guitar, sounds natural. And what I like about that is it's very subtle within like the melody, just creates more space and just lets other elements shine through that I'm going to add later on. As always, reverb and just the EQ that I always like to use. And then I use like this weird delay that I don't really tend to use. It's a preset and it just gives a cool like lasting effect on the guitar, and I've brought it down a lot in the mix, so it's just subtle in the background but it sounds nice. Once I tracked that out, I compressed it so all the sounds are a little bit more leveled out. It just sounds better. And then I've run it through a cassette just to give it that nice like cassette tape saturation. After that, I've used this Scarby Mark 1 from Contact, and I've used these chords just halfway through the chords, and they just give nice rhythm and just fit in the pockets again. And what I like about this, that nice like counter melody towards the end of the 8th bar, and that just gives it a nice feedback into the first chord of the loop. But for that I put a heavy reels, lots of flutter, harshness to give that nice core edge to it, just a casual reverb and EQ. Then I've used this like glitchy vibe chorus, gives it a nice just effect that I felt like it just fit in perfect with the texture and vibe. And then I just took out the lots of highs because it was very, very harsh, so 2K, and it just fit in perfect. Has that nice underwater effect. And as you can see here, I cut a little bits out and I just reversed it so it sounds like this. And that just feeds into the first chord, so it's like this. Sort of just like being a riser, building tension, especially for like a dominant chord, and then it just comes back in. It sounds perfect. Then I added this bass that's just the root notes and sounds like this. Then I had these vocals here that I stacked, and one's lower, one's higher, and they sound like this. And all I used on that was just little altar boy. I use this very intense reverb to give it a lot of air to it, makes it spacious and just drowns it out. And then all I've done with that is just took out some lows, I boosted some 11K just to give it a little bit more brightness. And then after that I exported them two samples together and made this like reversed sample from the vocals. And what I did with that is just use this like pulsing effect with the side chain of the volume, and it just, I didn't want the start of it to be too intense, so it just rises up. Then I made this filter that just filters out near the end, so it sort of has like a rising effect and feeds back in. It just fits perfect. Then just a tons of delay. So that's pretty much the whole of this sample. So I pitched it down 3 semitones that I always like to do. You've seen it before. So together this is how the whole sample sounds. So yeah, that is the whole sample together. I think it came out perfect. It has a very cool, it's very unique vibe to it. The vocals sound cool, and like the chords and structure of all the elements, it's very simple but just kept perfect. Nothing going too over the top. If you like these videos, you know what to do, people. Comment down below, like, subscribe. If you've got any ideas that you want to send to me on Instagram, that's going to be on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one as always.